everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, welcome everybody to the second Indaba for the Ubuntu Desktop team. I'm Heather, your host today, and I'd like to take a moment to introduce everybody here that we have. So just looking at my screen here, we have Monica. She's super awesome, going to help us out on the back end. Oh, actually, you want to just talk about yourself?
Sure.
A little round table?
I am Monica Ahans-Madden. I am the Ubuntu community representative, so I work with Reese and with Ken on the community team. So if you're involved with the community, especially if you're involved with the governance side, like any of the councils, you get to work with me a lot. And I started out as a community contributor about a year ago, and then I've been with Canonical for 3 months now. Oh my God, it goes by fast. And actually, cool story, Dan, our special guest, you were the first one to say hi to me in the Ubuntu podcast channel when I joined. You were. So yeah, so it's
What
just
an awesome
like
guy.
I know. So yeah, so it is really great to be here. And if you all notice that I'm kind of like I'm focusing on a bunch of different things. I'm also pulling in comments. I'm checking the chat. So I'm talking, but I'm also doing stuff too. So don't worry, it's stream stuff. I'm not getting bored by Heather and checking my email off screen.
Yeah, Monica's awesome. She's gonna make sure that we get all the questions kind of in one place so we can answer them all. So don't be too hard on her if she's not staring at the camera the whole time. Okay, so you heard from Monica. I'm Heather. I'm on the desktop team. I do a few things, but I'm helping out here today. James, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm James Henstridge. I'm on the desktop team. I spend most of the time sort of trying to improve the experience for Snap applications running on the desktop. So that's a lot of that sort of working to improve Snapdeas, the packaging system itself. But yeah, that's most of what I do, yeah.
Yeah, James is like Mr. Snapdeas to me. If I have a Snapdeas question, a really hard one, I go to James. Dan, so we have Diddle Dan here. He's our special guest.
Hello.
Yeah, he's not from Canonical, but gosh, I sure do wish he was sometimes. So, Dan, do you want to talk about yourself a little bit?
I'm the most prolific community Snapcrafter, I think is probably the best way to describe me. I'm pretty much an expert on creating Snap packages now, and I'm also focusing on improving WSL integration as well on the other side of things.
That's great. I know I've looked at your Snapcraft YAMLs so much as like a reference. I'm trying to, I think I need to use this keyword. I'm pretty sure he's got it in this snap over here. So thank you.
Yeah, pretty much every trick I've used at some point.
Yeah, I believe it. So thank you very much for being our special guest here. And then Ken. Welcome, Ken.
Yes. Ken Van Dyne, lead the desktop team, and I am currently also leading the community team as well.
Our fearless leader.
Yes, very much so.
So this is kind of our folks here that we have today, and just a little bit about the format. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time in this kind of first half talking about some of the subject matter that we have the experts here for today. So like Snapdeas, Snapcrafter, some community things are exciting. I hope some of you watching were able to, or maybe all of you, were able to go to the community office hours yesterday that Monica and Reese had. So that's pretty cool. So first half, well, doesn't have to be the whole half, but first little bit, we'll talk about some topics, and then we'll go to answering all those questions that you have submitted over the last couple of days, and then questions that are coming into the various YouTube and Twitch chats. So thank you so much for everybody for being here and like participating in our excitement. So let's start with Snapdeas. I'm sure James has some really cool things to say about upcoming Snap and core desktop work that he's doing. So take it away, James.
So one of the things we have been working on quite a bit sort of for the last year or so as sort of a prototype for a desktop experience built on top of Ubuntu Core, which is basically a version of Ubuntu which is transactionally updated. So every time you update, it's to a known working state. And if an update fails, it can be rolled back to the previous state, which is working. So this basically extends a lot of those benefits from what people using IoT devices with Ubuntu Core are already taking advantage of. This means that we can do the same thing on the desktop. We've still got a fair way to go, but we're at a point where things are sort of starting to sort of come together, and can be used for for simple things. So yeah, we're probably getting close to a point where it's sort of other people could sort of start to play around with it and do some and start to experiment with it.
Yeah, I think a lot of users are really excited about like the core desktop and having that, fully fledged Snap ecosystem. Do you have anything to say about like maybe making that the wheels oiled, like make it work a little bit better, make snaps a little bit faster, like
yeah.
The next.
So again, one of the some of the work which we've been doing. A lot of the areas which sort of a lot of the areas where some snaps sort of take a while to start up. We can sort of improve those areas, and for a lot of the built-in functionality we've got in the Ubuntu Core desktop in particular, there is sort of less work for some of these built-in features to start. So even though they are, as a native Snap system, in general, it starts up pretty much the same. It feels pretty much the same as your classic Ubuntu desktop as far as application startup performance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, again, a lot of the performance issues with some snaps is sort of down to the fact that they're doing a lot of work on startup, which would often be either done at compile time or install time on a classic Ubuntu distro, and we can sort of provide a base system which has all of that work done sort of when we roll up the root file system and push that out to the system as an update.
Very good. Yeah, cool. I'm excited for Core Desktop for sure. I've run it on my Raspberry Pi. Yeah, I think it's a very cool project to get excited about, and I think the community's right there too. Thanks, James, for talking a little bit about that. Dan, can I throw the baton your way and ask you a little bit about stuff that's happening in Snapcrafters? I think that there's some like reorganization process changes, but really what I'm looking for is I want to help new people, maybe people that are new on Ubuntu watching this. This might be their first time, kind of watching Ubuntu things. If they wanted to get involved and say, I want to be a Snapcrafter, like kind of where would they go? What does that process feel like? That kind of thing.
Okay, so to become a Snapcrafter, you need to maintain a Snap in your own name for around 6 months, just to show that you are able to maintain a working Snap without breaking everyone, and show that you're committed as well. Once you've jumped that hurdle, it's a case of posting onto the Snapcraft forum that you'd like to become a core member of the Snapcrafters, at which point the existing Snapcrafters will take a vote, and I believe once we've got quorum, we'll then admit you to give you access to the GitHub organization and allow you access to some of the snaps that we are already maintaining under that brand. To be able to get started on creating your first snap, you want to check out docs.snapcraft.io. There's lots of good information there.
Yeah, and to add a little bit on to the process there for Snapcrafters, at least for some of us old-time Ubuntu folks, if existing Ubuntu members or people who have been following the community for a long time have heard of the concept of a Motu in Ubuntu, Masters of the Universe. These are people that can upload packages to the Universe Debian archive or Ubuntu archive for app packages. There's a similar process, right, where you have to have a proven track record for your ability to maintain packages, quality work. You have to nominate yourself. You need people to endorse you. It's a very similar process that we're going through with Snapcrafters. So the idea with Snapcrafters is a place for the community to maintain snaps, to make it easy for anybody to install them anywhere, for snaps that aren't directly maintained by their upstream developers. So we're putting some process in front of that's very similar to what we're already used to doing in Ubuntu already. So just some project structure, basically. And of course, Diddle Dan is like one of the beginners, one of the first Snapcrafters, and certainly very appreciated. Thank you very much for everything you do, Dan. But yeah, so that should be familiar to some Ubuntu members.
Yeah, very cool. Dan, do you want to talk about some of the new things in Snapcrafters besides the process? Like, I don't know, are there some cool new Snapcrafters snaps or?
I'm planning on bringing across Audacity into the Snapcrafters organization. At the moment, I'm currently maintaining that under my own name. And I've also got several other snaps that really need to be pushed across. In terms of other people, I'm not sure what's up with everything else.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's pretty cool about Audacity. I have that snap installed. Thanks again for snapping that. Yeah, that's pretty great. Let's see. I had a comment for that and I totally lost it. Just because I'm a little nervous. Okay, well, Monica, do you want to talk a little bit about community? Because I know some new changes.
When do I
are going.
not want to talk about it? Let's be honest.
I hear you. Yeah. So what's going on in the community space?
So community space we've had like you said, we had our first community office hours with Reese and I yesterday, and we were so excited by that. And even though it was a lot of Reese and I just kind of chatting with people, also we set up, this is our first Indaba that is being simultaneously cast on Twitch, because we are now there. And so it's great to be kind of expanding the reach. And our hope is when kind of some of the IRC stuff, that was a big thing this week. We moved. I will post the link to our discourse post and just a shout out to the community council and our IRC council, both outcoming and incoming, because of all the times for this to happen, we were just finalizing the election. And so it's like, oh, great, this big thing has come up, but people just stepped up to the challenge and got things done. And we all had some really late nights, but it was great to see the community working the way it should, kind of in times of crisis, which was, so, I mean, you obviously don't hope for those times of crisis, but I am so grateful for all the hard work that they did. So be very nice, very, very, very nice to especially the IRC Council for like the next month, because be nice to all your open source projects, because we all had to make this move and it was a lot. But our hope is for Twitch that we can eventually bridge the Ubuntu On Air channel, which is on our new home on Libera Chat, to the Twitch chat. And so we can have people who are able to join and chat in on IRC just here, which will be fun. And so part of it, these are going to be weekly. So come to the next one. And also
community office hours are going to be weekly.
Community office hours. And also we want to, I mean, it's like, well, you all might like to hear Reese and I talk all the time. We don't want to talk all the time. And we want to really highlight community people who are doing awesome things to contribute to Ubuntu, to do cool things with Ubuntu, and we'll have more info on how you can get involved with that. It's really fun.
That is exciting. So are you going to invite like community people to join with their webcams as well?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's great.
And so we have someone. I don't know who we'll get for the Snapcrafters though. Just if you can think of anybody.
If only there was an expert.
If only, man.
Yeah, right.
Okay. but having people from, and not only so people from Snapcraft and things like Kate's and things like Multipass, like all kinds of things. So yes, and also from the flavors and the remixes, who are a very cool part of our community. So yeah, it's going to be open up, I mean, to community in that broadest sense of the word. So we're excited about it.
Yeah, it's really exciting. So since you've joined and Reese has kind of like moved into this role, I think the community actions, like engaging the community, is just like spiked, and it's fabulous to see like the blog posts and the discourse posts and all of that. So keep up the good work, and I look forward to the future community hours. And you mentioned that you're going to do those weekly. So is it going to be the same date, time every week?
No, we're actually going to, because we know that our community is global, because like James, we know that this is kind of late for you. So we're going to take a cue from the desktop team, and we'll do early hours, and we'll do an early hour, and we'll do a late one. So a more APAC friendly one, and then a more Americas friendly one. And then for EMEA, it just depends on whether you're kind of a late morning person or an early afternoon person.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. That's great. That's really nice. So you're going to do both of those, the early one and the late one, every week?
No. We're going to alternate. Okay. So 1 week it will be early, 1 week it'll be late. That would be great, but not quite. Not quite. Mm-hmm.
That's good that you mentioned cadence, because I did want to say that we wanted to do these Indabas for the desktop team the last Friday of every month. So those of you watching, if you can just remember that, then you don't have to, write down a strange new date time combo every time. Watch for those announcements, right? And you can watch for those announcements. They will come. But you can also just remember to be the last Friday of every month. We're working out the time of the day, but yeah.
Yep, and we will have, I know if you're following us on Twitch, there is a schedule which automatically updates from a Google Calendar. We're still getting it updated on the Ubuntu site, so there will be ways that it will be pretty easy for you to find out when is all this cool Ubuntu On Air stuff happening.
Nice. Awesome. Cool.
Yep.
Okay, well, how about we answer some of these questions? We got some really good ones. Yeah. Good. Okay, so I'm going to take a look at this sheet here and start disseminating some questions. Let's start first with some of the discourse questions. So one we got was from Vincent Chernin on the discourse post. He asked, could GUI Flatpak support be shipped by default alongside Snap? This could benefit Steam, which ships as Flatpak but not Snap, if possible. Is it due to the extra work? What's the reason if not?
Okay.
Yeah, can you take this one?
Yeah, I can take that. I mean, it certainly would be possible to enable that. However, I mean, I think what we really want to focus on is providing the best experience we can with the Snap Store, while still making it very easy for users if they want to enable Flatpak to be able to do so. But supporting that out of the box is a bit more complicated, and we want to keep it really simple for our users as well as for us to support things. I do work with the community that Andrew Hazen, who I hope will get to join us for one of these Indabas. He maintains the Flatpak packages in the Ubuntu archive, and I sponsor those packages for him. So if you want to enable Flatpak, you really just have to install GNOME software-Flatpak, and you will get all the Flatpak support you need. And I do my best to make sure that we do that in a timely manner, and he can get those changes in as quickly as possible. So users that do want Flatpak support can get it easily. But no, we're not likely to support that out of the box.
Okay. All right. That's good. Thank you for answering that. There's let's see. The next question from Discourse was about GNOME 340, or sorry, 338. I know Ubuntu chose to stick with GNOME 338 this cycle, but could you provide a safe PPA for those that want to use the vanilla GNOME 40 session instead? I think that's a really good question. I mean, we want to ship GNOME 40 in the next release. That's not an LTS, so if there's kinks, we have time to sort it out.
It'll actually be GNOME 41 then.
Oh, thank you. Okay, good. There is a PPA. We can't completely say that it's perfect. So it's kind of there's a disclaimer. Use it at your own risk, but it does seem more or less pretty safe. So there is Monica, can you put this link? There's a link in the answer there. If you can put that in the YouTube chat, that'd be great. So we can disseminate that. And then there was only one more question on Discourse, and I think this is going to be for you too, Ken. It's a question about like our chat program. So are there any plans to move Ubuntu community chat to Matrix? Because Fedora's already done that. Mozilla and KDE have already moved to Matrix. What do you think?
I can definitely answer that. So that's actually not for us to decide, right? So we're Canonical. Although as Canonical employees, we are also Ubuntu members. But really the Ubuntu community decides where those communications happen. There is an IRC council, for example, that, kind of they oversee everything IRC. There isn't really a council that would oversee like a matrix kind of thing. I mean, that certainly could be a topic that could be discussed, and the Ubuntu community governance, the community council, et cetera, would really need to, get involved and make those sorts of decisions. With our Canonical hats on, we're here to support the Ubuntu community. And if that's what the Ubuntu community wanted, if there was a decision to go that route, we would provide whatever was necessary to make it happen. But we're not gonna dictate where that needs to be. For example, with the recent Freenode issue and Libera.chat, hopefully I said that correctly, move. That's exactly what we said when we were communicating with the community council. Is we're here to support you in whatever decision you make on where IRC is going to move to. And I did actually ask the question, do we want to consider something other than IRC? But that's a topic for another day. That's a bigger topic, whether or not we want to be on IRC or in multiple places. Personally, I as an Ubuntu member myself, I want to be everywhere where the community is. So I'm not restricting myself just to IRC. I participate in the Ubuntu Hideout Discord server, for example, places like that. Anywhere where the community might be, I want to make sure I'm there to engage. But as far as officially endorsed by the Ubuntu community, that's really going to be up to the community to decide. So if you have opinions there, I would definitely urge you to get involved and help drive some of those discussions. Yeah,
that's great. Come, plug Matrix to the Ubuntu Community Council. Let's see if we can get that changed. Cool. Thanks for answering that, Ken. James, can we talk a little bit about Core Desktop? So one question we got actually from YouTube today is, will it be possible to build your own core desktop images?
So with the prototype images which we've been building, I haven't been making use of any special permissions. So this is basically just what I've been doing with the prototype systems is something anyone could do to build those images. I think eventually, like the standard Ubuntu desktop, I think we probably do want to have a standard desktop session. So in general, there would probably be a standard desktop session, which would be provided by Canonical and the Ubuntu community. But when we do actually have those snaps published, it would be possible to build up custom images. So let's say that you wanted to build something which had the standard Ubuntu desktop session plus an application you want. You could build an image which had sort of a set of applications which your users need, and you could build an image so that when you flash that onto a computer, it will start up with all of the default applications which a particular set of users will need. So that kind of customization should be possible. If you do want to go completely off the beaten path, you could build your own system from scratch the same way we have for the prototype. So there's various levels of customization which are possible.
Yeah, and to add on to that a little bit, I would definitely very much like to see, for example, the flavors to be able to take advantage of this, right? So there could potentially be a mate flavor of core desktop. So we're very much taking that into account when we're building this. We're making it into building blocks as much as we can, so you can pick and choose pieces you might want to replace when you build your own images. So I would love to see us get to the point where flavors are taking advantage of that as well.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, James. So are those instructions for the prototype, for building the prototype, are those up on the docs?
So at the moment, we haven't
Or are
sort
they
of
somewhere?
So at the moment, we haven't really been particularly vocal about the prototype images. They are up on GitHub. In fact, we use a GitHub Actions workflow to build them. So basically, there's no sort of, there's no private aspects of them, and in fact, someone could even clone the repository and build their own image that way if they really wanted to. But I mean, I think we'd like to sort of see most of the work sort of around the existing repository, because that's what we want to have as a future product which people will be able to use.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, so yes, you can go build your own images, but maybe wait a little bit. Wait till some of the kinks get worked out, you know? And that standardized Ubuntu desktop session, if we have that, I mean, that sounds good. It sounds like a good way to keep the kind of brand like there, if possible. Okay, great. Well, let's kick it over to Dan for a little bit from the community side. So Dan, you've been around for a long time. What would you say is some of the driving excitement around community participation when it comes to snaps? I mean, do you think, what kind of patterns have you seen in the community around snaps and such?
There have been a lot of games published.
That's the Steam question.
Yeah. Games seem to be the easiest thing to package. So it's a good place to start, especially if it's an open source game that you can find. Usually games are very self-contained anyway, so you don't have to jump through too many hoops to get it working.
What about games that need wine? So I know some snaps have packaged wine as well as the application itself, but now that we have desktop portals, we could avoid that, right? And just have one snap with wine and have the others use it.
Yeah.
Right?
There's a proof of concept called Sommelier that's available on the Snapcrafters repositories on GitHub. That's maintained by someone else in the community, and they're regularly updating it for newer versions of wine. And the way that works is that most Windows games are proprietary, so you can't actually distribute them in the Snap Store as is, but quite often they've got a download. So the Sommelier script will download it on first run to get around the redistribution policies of any end-user license agreements. And it will set up everything required to get wine running and will run the game almost as though you'd installed it natively.
Interesting. I wonder if the games publishing and the Sommelier maintenance is extra because of the pandemic and people are stuck at home.
Possibly.
So, yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, let's see what other questions we got coming in. Let's see. Sorry, there's some new questions here. Yeah, so we did get a bunch of questions previously submitted from Ubuntu Hideout. So, here's one about Unity. That was kind of not my favorite, so I don't really have a good question, or a good answer for this. So I'm going to punt to Ken. This person, Tempora, asked, I was a big fan of Unity back in the day. Why was it dropped? I personally haven't looked into it, but would love to hear from the desktop team of what happened. So Ken, what do you think?
Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. So, I mean, yeah, Unity was great. It served us well for a very long time. However, I mean, it was quite a bit of engineering effort to kind of keep working on it and keep it working and moving in the right direction. We had big plans for going from Unity 7 to Unity 8, which was in conjunction with the move, with the work we were doing on convergence and Ubuntu Touch. However, when we shifted focus and dropped Ubuntu Touch as a target, that really left the Unity 8 work out there. There wasn't much need for that anymore. So really what it came down to is the question is, do we want to continue to invest in developing Unity, or do we want to switch back to GNOME and kind of use our resources a little bit more wisely? So it wasn't that we were necessarily dropping Unity. It was more about prioritizing where we were investing. Unity was built on GNOME technologies. I mean, it wasn't a GNOME project, but under the covers, it used a great deal of the infrastructure that was provided by GNOME stuff anyway. So, it really made a lot of sense just to go back to GNOME and refocus our efforts there to provide a great experience.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we got to use our resources wisely, right?
If you want access to Unity on a modern Ubuntu, you can get that from the Ubuntu Unity Remix, which is community maintained.
Yes.
And that's available
awesome.
at ubuntuunity.org.
Yeah, and I do believe the head of the Ubuntu Unity Remix is in one of the chats. So I believe he's in the YouTube chat, and it's amazing what they've done. And so, yes, that would be a great project to look into because they're keeping the spirit of Unity alive, and it's great that it is an entirely community-run effort.
That is really cool, and I love to see that being kept alive because there are a lot of people that absolutely loved it. I feel like I was a little bit of an outlier there. That's okay. Okay, great. Well, let's take another question. Let's see. Here's one about translations. This was a good question on Ubuntu Hideout yesterday, or recently. In-Depth 6 asked, why does Ubuntu have support for Breton and Scottish, but not Urdu, a major language in Pakistan? That was a great question. And the reason is just kind of resources. So Urdu is a supported language in Ubuntu, but the coverage is pretty bad. So you can check out translations.launchpad.net/Ubuntu, and you can find out the different languages that are supported, and you can click one and then find out more about that translations team and see how, and you can reach out and say, hey, I want to help out with the translations on Urdu. So we really want to encourage the community to help us get those translations out there, increase the coverage for all of the major languages, and Urdu is a big one. So if someone has that translation knowledge and is willing to help out a little bit, whether that's testing or bugs or actually adding translations, that would be really helpful. So please check out those translations teams and see how you can join.
Yeah, and honestly, the translation community within Ubuntu is a great place to get started contributing. It's a great way to get involved in the community. In fact, our translations are completely maintained by the community. There's very active translations teams around the world. So it's a great place to get started.
Yeah, I'm actually going to put a link here to one of our really active community members is forming a group on Telegram to kind of coordinate efforts. And so I just put that link there. And that is definitely something the work of our volunteer translators is something we're going to highlight in upcoming community office hours, and helping people, because we know that sometimes it can be a bit of a complicated process finding out how to get started. And so that is going to be one of those contribution areas we're going to highlight and definitely help people get on the right track there.
Yeah, good. Thanks. Looking at some of the new questions from the people that are watching. Here's one. What is the progress on the feature automatic theme installation for Snap apps? I think that's for you, James.
Okay. So one of the areas which sort of people have sort of in the past have commented that Snaps sort of feel a bit sort of behind sort of your application installed from Debs is if you've picked a non-default theme, will the Snap application match that? Now, one of the complicating factors is that since Snaps are designed to sort of build once and run everywhere, they may not be running the same version of GTK as the standard desktop. So it's not always a simple case of making the theme data available on the base system available to the snaps. So what we do want to do is have it so that you can package up the themes as snaps themselves. To cover most people, we've got a snap which contains most of the default themes used on common Linux distributions these days. So as well as the Ubuntu themes, you've got Adwaita, you've got Ubuntu Mates themes. I think we've got the default themes for KDE and a bunch of others. Of course, this is never going to cover all of the themes which people can use. So one of the design principles we had was that we want to have it so that people can package up just a single theme as a snap and have it so when you install that snap, it will make that theme data available to all of the other Snap applications on the system. Now, that's sort of, I mean, if people know to install the theme Snap, then that kind of works. But we do want to make it so it happens automatically. So we've been working on a helper daemon, which will sort of run in the background and in the desktop session, which eventually will sort of handle a number of Snap-related tasks. But the first one we're looking at is having it so it can detect when you change your theme or when you log in to see what the theme is and say, is there a theme snap available for this theme, and install it for you so that when that's working, when you launch a Snap application, if the theme is available on the Snap Store, then it should look the same as all of the other applications on your desktop.
That's
It's
great.
not quite there yet, but I think it's going to improve the experience quite a bit.
But it has to come from the Snap Store. So if someone wanted to write their own theme and write their, make their own theme Snap and just have it locally, it wouldn't work.
If you wrote your theme and if you did install something locally, yes, that would work. But I think in general, most people, if they write themes, they want to share them, and we want to make it so it's just as easy to share your theme on the Snap Store as in other places. So we do want to make it so it's going to be easy to publish the themes, and you'll be able to even see through the metrics in the Snap Store that people are using them, which I mean should help sort of keep people motivated to see that people are actually using their themes.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. I look forward to that kind of automatic theme updates. That's nice. What's the default? Would the default be like Yaru if it just didn't?
So yeah, I mean, at the moment, we take the theme settings from either the X server or via the portals if you're on Wayland. Mm-hmm. If you are on an Ubuntu system, it is using the Yaru theme. I think if the theme is missing, I think in general it'll often go back to Adwaita, but sometimes things go wrong. It's sort of because it depends on what version of GTK the Snap is built with. With the newer versions, it generally works a bit better than the old ones, but it's if you build your snaps with the newest GNOME extensions for Snapcraft, it's probably going to have the best experience, because that way we can sort of improve your snap without you having to sort of follow the Snapcraft forum and follow the best practice. Some of that stuff will just come through automatically for you.
Yeah, cool. That's great. Well, talking about some other kind of like upcoming things, we've got some questions on GNOME 40. So there's a new one in a chat, one of the chats, that is, here it is. Okay, it's from YouTube, from Alex Ander. Has it been a challenge to move from GNOME 3 to 40? What are your thoughts on 40? Will Ubuntu stick with 40? Well, it's really going to be 41 for the foreseeable future. Is Unity going to make a comeback somewhere else down the line?
Yeah, I can take that.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a challenge. It's a bit of engineering work. We didn't ship GNOME 40 in 2104, primarily because it was a big change that happened kind of late in the GNOME development cycle. So it didn't give us a lot of time to update. Like, we have some GNOME extensions that we ship by default that needed some updates. And it's not just simple code updates. There's actually, the user experience change. So we needed to adapt some things. So we didn't really have time to put the level of polish on that we would have wanted to, and still ship GNOME 40 in 2104. We are going to go to GNOME 41 and 2110 throughout this October. I wouldn't say it's problematic in any way. It's just a simple matter of programming. We just had to do the work, and a good portion of that's done already. And you should be seeing that in Impish pretty soon.
I think it's probably also worth noting that we did switch to Wayland by default in the latest release. So by sticking with the same version of GNOME, we could sort of tell, is this a bug caused by the switch to Wayland, or is it something which is caused by the switch from GNOME 338 to GNOME 40?
Yeah, exactly.
Let me go and move. Sorry, there we go. That was way back in the chat. So. Oh. What happened to
You're on mute.
audio?
We can't hear you, Heather.
Oh shoot! Can you hear me now?
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was my fault.
I'm sure there was an absolutely brilliant answer there, but it happens.
Crud. Okay, well, you got to see me enthusiastically talking silently for a little bit. Yeah, so what I was saying was that it leads me into a couple of questions that Daniel, different Daniel, not Diddle Dan, posted in Ubuntu Hideout the other day about what are we most proud of in 2104? What are we looking forward to in 2110? We got these questions last time too, but because you guys were talking about some recent changes like Wayland, I wanted to kind of bring that up and then say, just highlighting about 2104, there were some new enterprise features, Active Directory support. And then with 2110, we'll be seeing GNOME 41 and Pipewire, I believe. Is that right,
Perhaps.
Ken?
We're
We're still waiting. Okay.
We're evaluating that now.
Yeah. Okay, great. And as James mentioned, we did Wayland, which is a big hairy monster out of the way. I feel like kind of getting everybody to switch over. Yeah. So very cool. Well, gosh, we're running out of time. So let me just say, any questions that we don't answer on air, I will seek for answers and then try and post them on the discourse post where I had the announcement for this. Okay. So if I skip your question, don't take it personally. We'll get to it just maybe after the fact, because there are a lot of questions, which is great. I'm glad that you guys, that you folks are all excited to answer questions. Gosh, it's taken me a long time to scroll through this spreadsheet for some reason.
Yeah, we kind of keep adding more questions.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So let's see. There's one topic I absolutely want to talk about before we're done. Rolly asked on Ubuntu Hideout the other day, could it be possible to add Easter eggs to Ubuntu? And to add that, are there Easter eggs that nobody has found? Now, Ken, James, Diddle Dan, you guys have been around for a long time. So I figure among the three of you have to have answers to that.
James might have more history than I do, but I would say I don't. In my 12 years, I don't think we've had any Easter eggs in Ubuntu directly. There used to be some Easter eggs built into GNOME way back.
Okay.
I even heard rumors that one of these Easter eggs actually exposed people's phone numbers, GNOME developers' phone numbers. But that was back when there were no GNOME users, really. I mean, James, do you have any history there?
Yeah, often we don't sort of remove the Easter eggs from upstream projects. So I do know I have sort of had a long involvement with the GNOME project, and there's been a lot of interesting ones. I think there might have been some in Unity, but I wasn't sort of quite so involved with Unity 7, so I don't know. I don't know how much there was in that area, but I know that most of the old GNOME Easter eggs, they definitely worked on Ubuntu systems.
What about you, Dan? Do you know of Easter eggs in the Snapcrafter snaps?
I do, because I put one in.
Ooh, that's great.
It's in my Clouds snap, which installs a Windows VM. And if you can find it, you'll find out why it's called Clouds.
Okay.
Well,
Challenge accepted.
Okay, I know, right? So
it's not hidden very hard.
Okay. I was going to say it's a lesson for the reader or watcher to go do before the next Indaba. So what about maybe adding an Easter egg, maybe in Snapd or something, so that we could have it in the core desktop? Like that would be fun for folks. You could plant an Easter egg and say, here's core desktop, everybody, go find it.
Yeah.
We'll send a Snapcraft sticker to whoever finds it or something.
Yeah, actually, I think there was sort of a there was an Easter egg in Snapdeas command line utility at one point. I don't know if it's still in there at the moment. I think it just sort of showed some of the it showed some of the developers' names. It wasn't. It was basically just sort of a bit of fun. I don't think it's still in there though. But.
Well, personal request for me to add one. Okay, cool. Well, I appreciated the questions about the Easter eggs. I also wonder about those things. So, okay, there was a here is a question that Jurapura at 13 asked. I hope I'm saying that right. What is your view on the UB ports project? And Ken, I'd like to send this to you first, and then if anybody else has like an opinion there that they want to add,
sure,
go for it.
Well, I think UB ports is awesome. I'm so glad to see all that work that we put into Ubuntu Touch is living on. I did work on the phone project for a couple of years during my time at Canonical, and I'm very happy to see it continue. And I'm glad to see that. I even think they've recently added support for another device. I mean, it's really thriving. I like seeing that.
Great. Okay, yeah, UB ports is pretty cool, and yeah, nice. We did get a couple of questions about telemetry, and so I wanted to at least address a little bit there. So I think the telemetry questions all came in on Ubuntu Hideout, and so it was asked kind of by multiple people like Jurapura and Ginger Jake. So the question is, telemetry is a valuable way to determine what features and services a user employs on their desktop. What myths does the desktop team wish to dispel, and information would they like to convey to users surrounding the aggregation and use of telemetry? I would like to just say that Canonical and Ubuntu is very committed to being, respecting the user's privacy. And so while it is really valuable to determine kind of what people are using the most, what users want, so that we could focus our efforts there, we also have to be really careful about it and to stay conscious about people's privacy, and we don't want to abuse that in any way. So we're really careful to not introduce anything that can violate the user's privacy. We do prompt the users for some basic information, which is completely opt-in and anonymous. And there was another question if we were going to add any more telemetry, and there's not aware of any plans right now to do that. So yes, telemetry is useful, but we're also, with great power comes great responsibility. Let's see. Maybe we can do one more question in here before we run out of time.
Five more minutes.
This is a question that struck close to my heart because I love documentation and community and all that jazz. So it wasn't really a question. It was a remark kind of about Ubuntu docs. So Daniel said in Ubuntu Hideout the other day that one of the big issues with Ubuntu docs is it's all online. So when you set up a desktop without access to the internet, which is an option, none of the networking information is available. So you can't easily work through problems without just kind of having that knowledge already. So is it possible to maybe zip and supply the documentation as part of the installation ISO that could be optionally installed or accessed? Yeah, Ken, what do you think here?
I can take that. That's a very complicated, kind of broad topic. I mean, we do include documentation in the installed image in the form of what's provided in Yelp in GNOME for GNOME apps, right? So there's some built-in documentation on using GNOME Shell and using various GNOME apps. That sort of stuff is packaged and bundled. but that's not Ubuntu specific documentation. So it really depends on what kind of documentation are you talking about. If you're talking about like some of the built-in, like how do you get your Wi-Fi card working with, version whatever of the kernel, kind of thing. It's pretty hard to bundle all of that stuff, because those are the sorts of things that are generally found on Ask Ubuntu or even on wiki pages or even the Ubuntu forums. So how do you pick and choose what to bundle, and how do you present that to the user in a discoverable fashion, right? So it's a pretty hard question to answer on how you could do that sort of thing. So yeah, that's about as far as I can go with that. Unfortunately, there's no silver bullet to say we can just zip up Ask Ubuntu and have an offline version of that. That's kind of a beast. Wouldn't be able to do that. But unfortunately, I think that's where the most information really is for that sort of thing, which I think is what the user was asking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it would be cool if we could zip. I mean, if we could spend some time and kind of find some of those Ask Ubuntu posts that would be more likely to be needed in those like starting moments of installation. But
Daniel just said the question is more geared towards the wiki. That's an even more complicated question because the wiki is a topic by itself. It is enormous. It is old. It can be very slow, which makes it even harder to find some data. We will be looking at what we can do with the wiki to improve that sort of experience. But either way, I mean, there's so many pages. I want to say like over 100,000 pages or something like that on the wiki.
Yeah, I do want to say that as someone who came out of the flavor background, Ubuntu Mate ships with this documentation that has been put together by our team, and it's really just beautiful and helpful, and it ships with the ISO. And so if there are people who maybe, I mean, we know that this would be a big thing to undertake, but maybe if as we start, working through the wiki, that this could be maybe done in parallel, and maybe it might not be for every release, but maybe at least for the LTSs, if we could have some kind of, it wouldn't walk you through every issue, but maybe some of the most common issues that happen. It seems like this could be a place where ISO testing and documentation could really work well together. So if you're interested, we'll have a post on Discourse. So
yeah, that sounds good. And if someone was interested and wanted to get involved there, coming and asking additional questions at the community office hours would be a good place to like kind of reach out for help if you want that. So real quick before we're done, we only have a minute left. I wanted to quickly go around the room and ask what your favorite Ubuntu animal has been thus far.
For me, it's a tie.
Okay.
Disco Dingo and the Groovy Gorilla are my favorite two, and I cannot pick between the two of them.
Okay.
I'm wearing my Groovy Gorilla shirt today.
Oh yeah,
nice. So jealous of all of you with your shirts.
My Ubuntu shirts are dirty. Should have done laundry to prepare for this. Next time. James, what's your favorite animal?
I think probably my favorite Ubuntu wallpaper is probably the Hardy Heron one. It's always sort of
it is
nice wallpapers, so that always sticks in my mind. I like that one.
Very artistic. It was great.
Yeah, me too. And that was the Ubuntu that I started on, so it's a little nostalgic as well. Yeah, I like Hardy Heron. Dan, what's your favorite?
Probably Warty Warthog because it's the first one.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I feel I need to show that in honor of that, I just got this new tea mug that I think, it's pretty cute. So even though I wasn't even aware that Ubuntu was a thing for the first one, so.
That's funny. So what's your favorite animal, Monica, that you're aware of?
Eo and ermine. Both for and I just because I love ermines, they're so cute, and the Ubuntu wallpaper for that, and the Sylvia Ritter artwork was absolutely gorgeous. So,
Yeah, I do really like all the artwork. Anyways,
Oh,
okay, well, I think we've had a really nice time here, and there's still lots of unanswered questions. So I'll work on getting something posted probably in a couple of weeks with all those answers. Okay, so just stay tuned, and we'll get some answers out there to you. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. I know I've had fun, and I think everybody here has. It's always nice chatting with everybody about, one of our favorite topics, Ubuntu and desktop. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you at the next Indaba, last Friday of June, which is, I should tell you that date real quick. It is the 25th. So June 25th will be our next one. So see you all at the next one.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.